So why don't we start with you telling me and our listeners a little bit about your story?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me on the show. I'm delighted to dive in with you. My story, I have a performance background. I've wanted to be on stages since I can remember. My parents put me into dance classes when I was 9. I took jazz, modern, and some ballet, and got up on that stage, and I don't feel I ever turned back. And I loved it. When I was around, I want to say, I think it was 13, I was performing in this number where I had to do this triple turn and then stop and then say, when I grow up, I want to be just like Wonder Woman. And this dance teacher who was in the audience came up to me after the show as I was heading into the dressing rooms. And she said, "Have you ever thought about being an actor?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Because you have just such a lovely voice and presence on stage." And of course, that went to my head. And I'm like, "Mom, Dad, I want to be an actor." And they're like, "Great.
Yeah, we'll never make any money.
We'll never make
Sweet.
any money." Yeah. And I come from a very conservative background. My dad was a financial manager for many years. I came from this, that was not that creativity, that world was so confusing for my parents. So they said yes, though. They put me into acting classes, and I took acting classes at this little studio where I grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado. And then one thing led to the next. I had the bug.
It bit
And
you.
I fell in love with all the theater people, and I was in the drama league, and I was in all the school plays, and I'd always come up with all the funny experimental things. That was really exciting for me. And also in art classes. And then I pursued it. I graduated college. I moved to San Francisco. I did theater there. I discovered comedy there, where I was working with a sketch comedy group called Old Man McGinty. And we did a lot of really fun absurdist work and performed often at this place called the Exit Theater in downtown San Francisco. And then one of our members told us they're leaving the Bay Area, and they're going to move to Chicago, and they're going to study improv. And I was like, well, I want to go study improv. So I hightailed it to Chicago after getting married first. I got married.
Okay.
And then I said to the man that I was married to, who also happened to be an actor, I'm like, "We're going to Chicago." And he said, "Fine, let's go." So we did.
Wow.
And I interned my way through this place called IO, which was formerly called Improv Olympic. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, they've closed their doors for good. But I interned my way through there and then performed on those stages, and simultaneously was teaching kids acting. And a core faculty member from the Second City was co-teaching with me. And she said, "You know what? We're starting a youth program at the Second City, and you love theater and you love improv. Would you come help us start this program?" And I said, "You want me to work at the where?" Sure.
Yeah.
So I went to Second City, and that's how I started that career in forming curriculum for the youth. And then I started teaching adults. And then I started doing a couple of their BizCo gigs. Then I met this executive coach, and he said, "Hey, would you come do an improv workshop for this team of financial advisors?" I was like, "Yes, and to that." And then one thing led to the next. And before I knew it, I was traveling around the globe teaching improv with this executive coach who used the Berkman assessment. And sometimes he uses the DISC assessment to help organizations think creatively together, use their different personality types, I guess, to form tighter teams. And the improv, what's so beautiful about it is it highlights those personality differences and shows us how we can use them as an asset in these different circumstances that we put people in. And from there, I just yes-anded my way through life. And then he's like, "Can you coach this C-suite over here, and this exec over here, and this manager over here, and this team over here?" And I said, yes, and in public speaking, because a lot of those skills we use as actors
every day, even in our relationships, even with our partners and marriage and kids. It's like, okay, how can I practice or rehearse how this is going to sound better, or it's going to be better delivered. So I agree.
100%. Yeah. So I fell in love with teaching folks that were not actors. I fell in love with it.
That's amazing. I love that story. How has, since COVID happened, how has your work changed a little bit? Because obviously you can't go and teach teams and there's comfort level with travel and different things like that. How did you pivot and kind of shift towards the new COVID mindset or the COVID lens?
Such a great question. Well, I have always worn multiple hats throughout my whole entire life. So I moved to New York City a year shy of the pandemic.
Oh gosh.
And I was just getting my feet wet here in the community, the theater community, as well as like I joined a co-working space in hopes to kind of expand my network as a coach. And then of course, that all closed down, which I feel overall, I did a pretty great job of pivoting. There's a couple people I reached out to right away who I'd been contracted with to work with them as a coach. One organization I work with often that I'm a senior public speaker coach for is called Hillside Communications. We do a lot with pharma. And I called up Chris Hill immediately and I said, let me help you figure out how to get on Zoom now. Let's pivot and figure out how we can do these facilitations on Zoom. And he was delighted to go through some of those skill sets that are brand new. And learn
for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, for everybody.
Right.
Luckily, I had been using it already for sometimes auditions and sometimes meeting people who lived in other cities. So it wasn't brand new to me. So I was able to help him with that learning curve. We helped each other. That was one way. I started really focusing more on my business, which is Grundei coaching. And I started a group coaching program because I'm a huge believer in community. Yes. I feel that the more the merrier. And if we can be there to lift each other up.
Well, and I think for a lot of people, for different personalities, if they don't feel comfortable sharing, they can listen to someone else, which then can lead to or navigate a riff or a play to move forward and feel like they have more vulnerability. And I think there's it's an AA meeting, right? Every coaching session can be formatted like an AA meeting because you're listening, but you're also contributing. So
100%. So I started a group coaching program called Confidently Speaking for Folks. I started joining more networking groups, trying to find my community.
Yes.
That's what I did spend a lot of time doing. And I would imagine a lot of people did the similar things if they weren't leaving their jobs.
Absolutely.
And then negotiating the family life, because I have a daughter, a husband, and a dog and a cat. And it was I feel that the biggest thing was having grace with myself and finding joy in the process within the transition that we were all in and knowing that we weren't alone.
Absolutely. Well, and I think moving to a different place too. I mean, you had change on top of change, and New York, typically has lots of people around. And then you guys came in the middle of a COVID storm. You talked a little bit about feeling like, dipping into the joy and seeing the joy and the change and navigating through the COVID waves. What expectations did you have for yourself this year as compared to the beginning of COVID? Were you like, I've got this, now I'm more comfortable? Or were you like, every day, when is this going to end? Or both?
I feel like it's kind of, I haven't really been like, when is this going to end? But I will say, because I'm pretty good with the long journey. I feel like I can kind of settle into that and find the breath with no expectation or outcome, if you will.
Yes.
But I will say the cracks started to reveal themselves more this year in terms of noticing how I felt when certain things would start to open and I was called to show up. And I realized, and I'm an extrovert, I kind of liked being cocooned. There was something that was
safe
about it. It provided a little bit of a little shelter for my heart. And so I felt from this whole pandemic, being inside with my family, knowing that that's where we needed to spend time was actually okay. I negotiated that. Okay. It's this new phase, this new normal that we're entering into where I'm not we're not quite sure what this, as my mother would say, the social etiquette is.
Ah,
right?
great point. Yeah. I mean, do you get on the phone with someone that you've never met and you're networking and you kind of dump like what your COVID journey has been like to show that vulnerability and build that relationship professionally? Do you wait for them to go first, right? When you're asking them? I mean, it's really interesting. It's almost like you're dating the public again, right? What do you do? We're all dating again.
Or when you see somebody that you like, I've been astonished that there's been this weekend, I had an event to go to, and I didn't realize that half the people that I saw in that event, I met during the pandemic. I've never seen them in the full bodied flesh. I was like,
Oh,
dang, you're tall.
Yeah.
Right.
Or what people show you, like on Zoom, like, you know, you can dress like a slouch and you can not wear your makeup and have your hair done or however you want to do. But then when you meet them in person, you're like, oh, that's what you really look like. It's almost like their alter ego versus their, I think, what are they, avatars?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. So yeah, I've been negotiating that. I would say that feels real. That feels pretty present. That transition you asked about.
That's pretty deep. Tell me a little bit about your coping mechanism. So you talked a lot about, you know, you're really good at kind of seeing the long game. It's expressing out like the long journey, but everybody has coping mechanisms, right? So what has actually kept you sane this year, I guess, as opposed to like the beginning? So you've obviously had some lessons from pre-COVID and then COVID, and then now whatever we are in, which wave we're in. But what is kind of keeping you grounded, keeping you sane from a human standpoint, not just a professional?
Staying in touch with the people that lift me up has been huge. Spending quality time with my family, intentional quality time with my family has been really big. We have our Friday night movie night. It's pretty consistent. We have a rotation of who picks the movie and who picks the takeout. That feels healing. I've got a fantastic husband who is really, we complement each other, because I'm kind of like, I can be very much throw the spaghetti noodles at the wall and see which ones stick kind of person. And
creative, yeah.
The creative type. And he's the very regimented. He's also creative, but he's also a musician, which I think there's a more technical mindset. He's a Virgo. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Yeah, there you go.
So he's very good with the habits and the compartmentalizing. And so he kind of keeps me moving and staying on task too. And we laugh a lot together, which is key. And we have our own little rituals too. So at night, we have our ritual where we sit down and we have a conversation, whether that be a cocktail in hand or a cup of tea in hand, or we talk a little bit, and then we have a show that we watch. And that's what we do. We have these built-in routines. And then I journal, you know, I do the things. I journal. I have a podcast I also started during the pandemic, which feels grounding for me. I go for walks. I have a little 6-minute exercise routine that I do.
Nice. 6 minutes.
And I try to be 6 minutes.
Oh, I need that.
I'm saying it's efficient. And I try to be gentle with myself. Sometimes it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, 6 minutes, I think any of us could do 6 minutes. I think a lot of us are like, oh, we have to, you know, work out for 45 minutes or an hour, but 6 minutes, that sounds really doable. I'm going to get that workout from you. Maybe we'll do it on the next podcast. We'll like do a live Zoom.
Heck yeah. It's awesome. It's super simple.
If you could pick one bright spot for you that you're like, this was a moment, this is my shining moment COVID story, what would it be?
The shining moment COVID story. That's a great question.
I always think about it as a bright spot, right? So COVID's been dark. There's been a lot of depression, anxiety associated with that. People, you know, you said turning towards your family and, you know, protecting your heart, kind of being your own cocoon. But, you know, say I told you COVID's over tomorrow and you could look back and you could say, what was that bright spot in COVID? What would be the first thing that came to your mind?
The bright spot to this journey that we've all been on for me has been the realization that community really matters, and that we need to really, I feel like we get so caught up. I'll speak for myself. I get so caught up in the day to day to day before
Mhm.
pre-COVID, where I was constantly on the go, and where I was aware of some of the things in the world that we should be considering and thinking about on a systemic level. Um, I I wasn't slowing enough down to actually hear
Mhm.
things
Yeah.
or listen,
Yes.
right? And so I feel that what has helped me, it's helped ground me more. It's helped me slow down so that
Mhm.
I can listen better,
Yes.
and also find more moments of gratitude in the little things.
Yes.
Because I was hanging my hat on, I wasn't enjoying and loving the process as much as I should have or could
Yes.
have.
Yes.
I was more about the destination.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's what I feel, that's the bright shining star from my experience with this pandemic so far.
Yeah, I love that answer. I've interviewed hundreds of people, since I started my journey last year, and it's consistently the fact that people have learned to stop, pause, reassess, slow down, reimagine their
Yeah.
lives. Am I doing the right work? Am I in the right career? What matters to me? The loss of relationships in a good way, and turning towards a sense of self. That's what we try to do, obviously, at She Shatters. But what advice would you give to our listeners or to yourself, right, when you look back about just resiliency overall, and what resilience means to you, and how you can kind of translate it into your life? Like, what does it take to truly be a resilient leader, woman, mother, person?
Yeah. Well, I think it takes deep listening. I believe it also requires us to be present,
Mm,
which is really challenging to do.
yes.
We're not trained to really just be in the moment and trust the moment. And so I'm going to throw in that word trust too. Uh, when I have allowed myself, when I've given myself permission to really trust the moment and that everything's going to be okay,
Mhm.
um, that's when I feel I'm the most resilient. When I start to allow myself to go off into storyland or into panic mode or into all the what ifs on the negative end of things, then that's when I feel powerless and small and not as resilient. And I
Mhm.
don't allow myself really, and I don't allow myself to go to that space very often,
Yes.
but when I do, I am, uh, I give myself as much grace around it as I can to say it's
Mhm.
okay to live in this space for a little bit. It's okay to feel these feelings
Yes.
and to feel them fully.
Right.
Because I don't feel that you're truly going to be resilient unless you allow yourself to feel it.
Hmm. How do you teach you said you had kids, right? Or
I
one
have a
kid?
10-year-old
Daughter, son?
daughter. Her name's
Daughter.
Harper.
Oh, I love that name. How
Thanks.
do you teach Harper how to do that? Because it's a learned skill over the years, right? And with COVID, what I'm hearing from a lot of parents are they tell me, Hannah, how could I have been done when I couldn't be done? Right? I'm so done with COVID. I'm so done with this, but I can't be done, right? I have to move forward for my kids, my family, and my daughter, keeping food on the table, keeping my job, keeping my sanity. So what would you say to Harper about that? How to do that?
That's a great question. I'm very lucky mom because I feel one of the most resilient people I've ever met in my entire life. Like this whole pandemic, remote learning, I feel overall she's done a pretty remarkable job with it.
Mhm.
So I actually can say that I've learned a lot from her.
Great. I mean, that's how parenting
Right?
is.
It is. She's all about the dance parties.
Oh,
So
nice.
like, oh, it's all about the dancing and the listening to the music. I would say for her, I would say to breathing is so important and we don't talk about it a lot.
Yes.
And that's something that I will say I have shared with her a lot because she does, even though she's super adaptable, she tends to uh, get have really big emotions really quickly to really small things.
Right.
And so something we've been really working on is noticing your breath so that you can integrate it in a way to where when you need to calm your breath or manage your breath or manage your anxiety or that fight or flight space that we get into, do you have the tools and you know what that feels like when it happens, when you have that response, that you can use those tools to calm yourself in a way that's going to serve you in those moments, I feel is something we've talked a lot about.
That's great. I love what you said about you're learning from her, she's learning from you. I mean, that's how being a parent is, right? If you didn't learn the lesson in your previous life or your next life, your kids are certainly there to terrorize you or teach you the lesson. I'm joking, but and then along those lines, what is a mantra that keeps showing up in your life, right? So I always think, in your next life, you're going to learn that lesson that you never learned in your previous life, or depending on what you believe in. But what is the mantra that has kept you going to hone the creative and focus on the creative, or just be Meridith? Like, what would be Meridith's mantra?
Well, it's funny you asked that because it's very similar to what I teach my daughter, which is my little mantra has always been just breathe.
Okay.
Just breathe. And in fact, I found one of those neon light signs on Amazon. I was like, I think I got to get that. So just breathe. I would also say, because I'm a huge improviser and I use a lot of improv in my coaching, yes, and is also a mantra.
I've heard you say that a couple times on this show.
Yeah, I would say, go ahead.
I've heard you say a couple times today. Yes, and
yeah. And yes, and in a way of ideation, creativity, noticing. I don't think we should be saying yes and to everything that comes our way. No is a very powerful sentence. But being able to have that I think it's the air of lightness around. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I see you, or yes, and I acknowledge you, or yes, and I will say yes to that and figure out the rest later, which is, I think, a great Tina Fey quote.
Yeah.
That's really served me. It's also helpful with parenting. And I could be better at that with parenting. I'll be honest with you.
True confessions in my confessional later.
True confessions for a yes and lady.
Yeah.
I'm not good at yes anding my daughter with everything.
Well, and I think it's often, so our society is yes and, which can lead to more work, which can lead to, putting yourself in a burnout situation. Yes, but sounds a little bit negative. So I think it's just playing around with that. But I love the fact that you can say, yes, and I still need to have dinner with my family, or yes, and I need to be home by 5 p.m. And, at my company at SheBurns, we're trying to help women and professionals and companies to build a yes, and basically build out what they want their company to look like, what they want their life to look like. It doesn't have to be just in a little box. And I think that's a lot that we face as women and in society in general, is we are placed in this box that we have to do this or we have to do that. And I love the fact that the reason why I have you on the podcast today is the fact that you're so creative. And who else to teach us rather than an improv, right? It's about exploring. It's about putting yourself out there. It's about not always having the answers and being comfortable in the gray of what comes next. So I love what you said in your mantra about yes and.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So that's kind of I would say the boring portion of the podcast, but I love to shift to I'm a really fun person. I like to party. I like to have a dance party. I'll invite your daughter over. But the next part is my favorite part of the podcast. And here's where I get to ask you kind of some fun and food for thought questions. Meridith does not know the answer to these questions, or she has not been told what the questions are. So Meridith, if I told you that you could live only in one place in the whole entire world, and I gave you a one-way first-class ticket to go there, where would you choose to live and why?
I'd be in New York.
Really? I was wondering.
Totally would.
Really? I want to know the answer to why. Why would you stay in New York? I want to hear this.
Okay, so I've only lived in New York for 4 years, and I consider myself a New Yorker now that I have lived here through a pandemic. That gives me a special badge
I think you
of
should
honor.
earn your stripes on that one.
Yes, I earned my. So I've traveled quite a bit and I love traveling. Love it.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite places to travel to so far has been this cute little colonial town called San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, where I've created this gorgeous community of people. I have a stepdaughter as well who is older and lives in Singapore. So I'm really excited about moving, or not moving there, but going. I haven't gone yet. My husband's been able to, but not myself. And I have loved lots of places that I have visited. There's something about New York and how diverse it is, how all cultures have congregated to this city,
Yeah.
that I absolutely love. I love sitting on the subway and being surrounded by 4 or 5 different languages. I love cities. I love the aesthetic of cities. I love going, I love architecture. I love energy of other people. I also do love my alone time and my quiet nature time. And I'm lucky that I live by Fort Tryon Park, which is stunning. There's just something about the grit. There's something about the, if you will, I heard someone describe the bacteria of a place once.
Wow,
And
that's a descriptive word. Yeah,
right?
for
The
sure.
bacteria. It sounds kind of gross, and
Yeah.
like rats are infesting in my apartment right now, which there are not. But it's like, I feel like it's the historical layers that I am living on top of and with, that I just, there's something that just feels at home for me with that. Not to say I wouldn't mind, like, a little casita on the beachside somewhere on occasion, but I don't feel like my soul would be happy with that full time.
Is it something about, I mean, I love that answer. I'm shocked, but not shocked, if that makes sense. Is it something about your personality and that, you're a change maker, public speaker, you love the improv, you love the excitement, you love the different, you like to be a chameleon, you like to be in different situations, and you're almost in a melting pot of all different types of walks of life and different ethnicities and whatnot. I love what you said about being immersed in different layers that stretch you. Tell me a little bit about, was it a big cultural move for you to shift from where you were before to New York, or was it just like instantly you got there and it was like a puzzle piece was clicked into place?
I would say for me, it was a puzzle piece clicked into place. So to give a little context for why we did them, we own a home still in Colorado, right outside of Boulder, Colorado. And we had the yard. We actually had a white picket fence at one point, and then I had them take it down because it was too much. And we adopted our daughter, Harper, when she was a day old. And she's from Oklahoma City, and she's African American. And so to raise a Black daughter in Boulder County.
Yes, I get it. Yeah. I used to live in Netherlands, so I get it.
Okay. So you get it. Okay.
I get it.
That whole area. That was not, as a white mom, a way that I felt like my husband and I felt that we could do much better as her parents. And so we actually rented our house out for a year and bought an RV and drove it all over the country through the South and so forth. We went in and out of these different cities, and then to save money, we went into Mexico, which was amazing, and toured all through Mexico
with Harper
and a dog and a cat.
Nice.
Yes. And we were on that trip, and we met this man in San Miguel de Allende. Again, that place comes up, and he was a former New York City actor. And he's like, I got this place on 56th and 9th. And what about your family just moving in there? It's only $525 a month. We're like, what?
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Wow.
And then one thing led to the next, and it didn't seem or feel like a great idea. But my husband and I looked at each other and we were like, did you see how excited we got about the prospects of moving to New York? Let's just do it.
Wow.
So we drove the RV back to Colorado. We had 2 weeks to rent out our house full time because we were Airbnb-ing it, sell the RV, pack up a moving truck.
Oh, Meredith, that's huge.
And
that's
moved to New
so
York.
brave. That's so brave.
And we did it.
Yes.
And we're alive.
And you did it with your daughter. I mean, I think that's the other piece is, I don't know how old she was during that time, but the lesson that she's learning, and she's traveling in this RV from Colorado to New York. It couldn't get any odder, weirder, different than that.
Nope.
And the fact that it's just like you checked in with each other, you and your husband. I'm like, how does that feel? Like we lit up, we got excited, and let's do it. Which kind of seems to me like a thread through your life, right? It's the power of improv, the power of, if you can improv at work, why don't you improv your life, right?
Well,
just move.
Well, and I'll tell you this too, that was a pivotal point for me was when my dad passed away. He passed away in 2011, and I grew up in a very conservative, pretty linear thinking family household where it was save for retirement. You go to college, you get a really great paying job, you save for retirement, you invest your money, you diversify, you retire, and then you're happy and then you die. And that didn't happen for my dad.
Yeah.
Right. He lost all of his money in 2008. He had a horrible accident. And then he ended up on a ventilator and in a coma and then passed away before any of those things he kept waiting for happened. And so that was a huge pivotal point for me. Like, life's too short. There's no roadmap that says I have to go forward on a straight line.
Well, and even if you're going down the straight line, something could happen. You could get in an accident. You could lose all your money. There are no guarantees. So why not make it joyful and enjoyable and learn from it? Wow, I didn't know that. That's an incredible story. I think your parents teach you what not to do, and in the way they live a life that shows you what to do in different ways, right? And those lessons.
Yeah, none of that stuff was easy. I mean, when we moved to New York, we were like two artists, like with a kid and a dog and a cat. I mean, we built ourselves back up.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting though. You get to choose the life that you want to live, and you can create it, especially with your daughter. But I love what you said about, you wanted more for her. You wanted something better for her, and raising her in a multicultural environment. So,
and it's been amazing. It's been really a gift.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is another fun question. What is one thing that you would love to learn to do, but you are scared shitless to try? Hopefully I can say shit on a podcast.
You can say shit.
We'll see if Spotify kicks me off.
We won't go down that path. So yes, something that scares me shitless to do. Well, there's a couple things, but I'll tell you the first one that popped in my head. One is I have always wanted to do trapeze.
Ooh, I can see that about you. I can see that. You've got the build for it and you're creative. So it's kind of a given.
Yeah, I want to fly. That just looks like fun. And the people who do it are buff. They're just buff. And that's one thing. And then the other thing is cliff diving. That scares the shit out of me. I've stood on the edge of those rocks before. Like, I don't know if you ever visited the Four Corners area and some of those.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just couldn't do it.
Would you try it though? I mean, would you try one of those two things? Probably would be trapeze artist prior to jumping off rocks, right?
Yeah, I think I would do the trapeze thing with the net before I would do the rock thing. But I would do, yes, I would do it. And I would do it soberly.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was going to say, what is it that you'd have to take in order to actually do that? But that's maybe for the X-rated version of the podcast next week.
That's for the other version of the podcast.
Well, I get a variety of answers to that question. You're my second season guest so far. We have obviously 9 more to go, but I'm excited to hear all the answers because
me too.
I'm curious, like how people respond to that, right? And
what's yours?
What's mine?
Yeah.
Well, I've tried a lot. I've traveled a lot. I've done a lot of things I can't say on the podcast. Scared shitless to try. For me, it's about writing a book, and I've actually taken the first step and started to do that. So I signed a book deal here shortly. But for me, it's the book that I want to write versus the book that I think people want to hear. So it's trying to marry the authenticity in those two threads. So thanks for asking me the question.
On that. Yeah.
So I just want to thank you. We're almost out of time for your time today. I loved what you said about, wanting something different for your daughter and learning from her versus her learning from you. The fact that you've pivoted in your life several times and really taken that leap of faith to live somewhere new and different, and the power of improv that it can have in your life. And I'm so glad that you were able to be with us today, with me today, and share with us your journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah. This has been so fun, super fun.
I know people always say, gosh, it's like talking to you. It's like, it seems like 5 minutes, but It's truly been fun, and to be able to hear your story and to share your story with, our wonderful guests and our wonderful audience on Spotify and iTunes. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.